It's such an amazing time in history to be a guitar player, especially if you're into modeling technology. We have so many choices right now, but that entry-level price point is getting really crowded as a lot of different players are coming into the market, and companies that have been around for a while are offering new products at that entry-level price point. So we need to look at something called a price to feature ratio. What kind of value are you getting for your hard-earned dollars? And I think it's really important now to take a look at that. Obviously, we want to know what it sounds like. We want to know what features it has. Well, this one has some interesting features that I often don't see in modelers that are priced even a little bit higher than that. So I'm going to discuss what that is. But ultimately, is this an entry-level player that you should consider? Well, why don't you join me? Hey there, I'm Dan, the self-proclaimed lonely rocker. Thank you so much for joining me today. So yes, today I'm taking a look at the Sonicake Matribox II. This has got upgraded hardware over the previous version, some additional software features. Basically, you're looking at an amp modeler and multi-effects device here. The onboard features are obvious. You've got an expression pedal, you've got onboard switching. Inside of this, you've got 63 different amp models. You've got 61 cabinets plus expansion for third-party cab IRs. It's got a drum machine and a looper built in, and it's also an audio interface. So if you're looking to set up a little recording setup at home, if you've got a laptop, well, you can actually drive your studio off of this. You could hook it up to speaker monitors. You've got an additional headphone out, so that means silent recording, practicing, jamming, things like that, which is a great feature. There's also a couple of features in here that I'm surprised that a budget interface like this, which comes in, at least at the time of this video, at under 230 US dollars. So it's an inexpensive modeler, but let's take a look at the features of this device. And ultimately, I know you want to hear what it sounds like, so let's dig in. On top of the features I have already mentioned, the Matribox II has an impressive array of features for a starter modeler. The expression pedal can be assigned to volume, swell, and wah effects. And the onboard switches can be assigned to specific blocks in your signal chain, allowing you to activate and deactivate specific blocks. This is a good way to set your main tone and then kick on different effects within the same signal chain. Nice feature. The Matribox II also has good connectivity for a smaller modeler. It has a port for an additional expression pedal, a send and return loop, MIDI connectivity, an auxiliary in, and a headphone jack on top of the main outputs. One of my favorite features on this modeler is the ability to reorder the blocks any way you like. However impractical, if you want to put your cabinet before your amp, you can do that. There's complete flexibility with block order, allowing you to fully customize your signal chains. This row of buttons on the front connects you directly to your blocks. Click on it once and it takes you to that specific block. Click it a second time and it deactivates that block. Very nice feature. Speaking of blocks, you can have up to 10 blocks per preset. There are dedicated blocks for your amps, cabs, delays, reverbs, modulation, volume, and noise reduction. Plus, you have 2 custom effects blocks that gives you access to a whole array of additional effects like boosts, compressors, overdrive, pitch effects, and many more. Not to mention effects for bass and acoustic guitars. There are enough onboard dials to make shaping your tones pretty easy. And it's even easier with the companion desktop application for easy control of all of the modeler's features from your computer. And lastly, the built-in audio interface has a surprising 6 inputs and 4 outputs, and the ability to mix various DI and affected signals, making this a versatile interface for home studio recording and reamping the modeler directly through the USB-C connection. So you can record a DI track and then loop it back through the modeler and have both hands free to tweak your tones. So by the way, full disclosure, Sonicake has actually provided this device for this review. I'm not being paid for this video. All opinions are my own, and Sonicake is not going to get to see this before you do. Everything I do on my channel, it's my opinion. I'm not here to be influenced by anyone else. I want to share my experience with this device, and I have a lot higher end gear here. I'm not doing free videos for entry level budget modelers. I want to show this to you to see if it's something that you might be interested in. And also I'm available to answer questions. That's what the comment section is for. So what I'm going to do is I've got 3 different tones, 3 different patches that cover a spectrum of tone. I want to show this to you in a mix. I'm going to show it to you double tracked, and I'm going to show it to you isolated on its own so you can get an idea how it performs in the mix and how the tones sound on their own. And make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to share my pros and cons about this device, ultimately to help you see if this is the right device for you. All right, let's get to the first example. I'm going to go with a hard rock tone here. I'm using my Schecter C1 SLS Elite bridge pickup in passive mode. Let's check it out. All right, that sounds pretty good. Important to know that I'm not processing the sounds. You're hearing what's coming off the device. I'm just using a little high pass and low pass just to fit it in the mix, but there's no other processing going on. And it really holds up. It's got a nice growl to it, some good energy. I think it sounds really nice in the track. But how does it hold up in solo? Well, let's check it out double tracked and then single tracked so we can hear the raw tone coming off the Matribox II. Well, I have to say, I think that tone really held up even in solo. It's got a good growl to it, good bite, not too harsh. There are things that I generally will do to a guitar tone, whether it's coming off an amp or a modeler. So what you're hearing is straight off the device. So considering that there's minimal or really no processing, really surprised how that tone held up. Ultimately, it sounded really good in the track, which is really the benchmark for me because I record here. Rarely am I going to hear a guitar on its own, but obviously it's important if you're practicing with this device. It's got to inspire you to want to play, and I think that's a great sounding tone. I think we're doing pretty good with the first example. All right, well, let's take a look at a cleaner tone now. We're going to pull up my Sir Classic T Deluxe Limited Edition. We're going to check out some clean tones. Again, we'll hear it in the mix and in solo. Let's check it out. So again, that sounds pretty good to me, but I think we need to listen to this in solo to really understand the tone of this particular preset. So let's take a listen. So on its own, it still sounds pretty good. Now we are listening to presets here, so there's a lot of effects in there. In a recording situation, what I would probably do is I would bypass those effects, get the raw tone in there, and then apply some effects later on. But because we are looking at this as a multi-effects device, I wanted you to hear it together with all the different effects. Now we've got EQ blocks we can put in there. We can back off on the effects a little bit. I just didn't want to get too in the weeds with that. I just wanted you to get an idea of what the preset sounds like. But I think there's great potential with that tone. A little bit wishy-washy for me. Like I said, a little bit too wet, and those effects. I think we need to be careful with the amount, but like I said, we can pull back on those a little bit. But what I'm hearing in terms of the tone, there's a lot of potential there. I think pickup choice will certainly be critical with a tone like this, but overall, I think it's a very usable tone, and definitely something I think you could work on either with the effects on board, or like I said, strip off the washy effects and treat that in your DAW. A lot of options there. All right, so let's get to the third tone. We're going hardcore heavy metal tone here. Let's check it out. Whoa, we got a lot going on there. Tons of saturation in that particular amp model, really big and bold. But I think we need to listen to that in solo to really get an idea of what's going on with that tone. So let's check it out. Now, listening to that tone in isolation is revealing some of the limitation there, at least for me, which also highlights one of the features that is lacking on this device, which I will talk about in a second. But first up, no shortage of gain, that's for sure. Very highly saturated tone. So if you're looking for those really high gain sounds, you can definitely get it out of the Matribox 2. For me, it sounds a little bit harsh and brittle to my ear. Even in the mix, I was getting a sense that it was a little bit crunchy on top, but not to say that you can't tweak those tones. Listen, and anything I say about tone, if I'm recording a real amp, I'll spend hours sometimes tweaking it to get it just right, so maybe not completely fair, but just out of the box with the preset that they've given us, to me it sounds a little bit harsh, but no shortage of gain there. And like I said, if you like tweaking, I think there's enough latitude in there to get it closer to what you may be looking for. But what's that thing that it's lacking? Well, when I reveal my pros and cons, I'll let you know. So let's move on to my thoughts about the Sonicake Matribox 2. All right, so all the way through the video, I've been alluding to something that this doesn't have, and it was on my short list of things that were sitting in my pros and cons. But just as I got to the end of my demonstrations, I discovered something in this device that I didn't know it had. So the thing that I was going to say that this doesn't have, which is pretty common with budget modelers, is a parametric EQ. It's a great way to fine tune any, amp model, because often, amp models can be a little bit harsh. It's not uncommon even with higher end amp modelers, but a parametric EQ will let you really zone into very specific frequencies. You can adjust the Q and really shape the sound of that tone model. Just find the harshness and pull it out with just sort of a 3-band EQ. You can't get that specific. So that's something that I typically use in mix. It's great when a device actually has that built in because it really lets you fine tune the amp model. So that was on my cons list. But check this out. If you go into the global settings, there's actually a global EQ, and lo and behold, that's actually a parametric EQ. Now, that's a global EQ. There's no block with the parametric EQ feature, but this will give you parametric EQ control over the entire signal chain. Now, if I was recording just the amp tones, which is typically what I would do, I can actually go in and adjust the overall sound of that tone with the parametric EQ. I can really get specific with what parts of that tone I find harsh and drop it out. I was about to pan this product saying, why don't they put a parametric EQ in the device? I see that a lot with modelers at this price point. But the fact that it has, in essence, a parametric EQ, this device just shot way up for me. I was actually really excited to see that. Now, my preference is that it would be a block, so I can apply that EQ just to the amp model itself and not the whole signal chain. For live, it's going to include all your effects and everything in the signal chain. But you want to know something? I was really, really, really surprised to see that. That's a big bonus in the favor of this device. So that's a great feature, which was going to be a con, is now very much in my pro column. One of my real favorite things about this particular model, and considering that it is a sub 250 device, is the fact that you have really unlimited control in terms of your block order. That's a limitation you'll see on a lot of budget modelers, not all of them, but some of them, where there's only specific things that you can move. The example I use is you can put your cab before your amp. I don't know when you would do that, but it just shows how flexible the signal chain order is. And if you're really into customizing your effects your way, you're not going to find any limitations with this device. Something like the ME90, for example, from Boss, it's a great device, but there are limitations in terms of effect order. You're not going to find that limitation here on that device. That's a really big plus, again, for this device. Other features that I like, the fact that you've got a send and return, again, on a budget device like this. If you've got a preamp pedal or something like the Tonex pedal, which I have up here, if you want to add additional amps and use this as a multi-effects device. You've got that flexibility as well. Connectivity is really, really a big plus for me on any device that I'm using. It doesn't lock me into just using this as it was designed to. It gives me some expandability. And if you're building a fly rig or something like that, you can put something in a loop and expand your device or your signal chain here. That's a really, really great feature. So, and overall, the amp tones sound really good. You know, it is a budget modeler. It's not the best that I've heard, but with all the flexibility, especially with that parametric EQ, you can really shape some really nice sounding tones in a really budget device. Oh, another thing I should quickly mention is the access to all of your blocks with these buttons on here is actually really, really handy. Like I said, tap it once, it takes you right to that particular block so you can get in and edit it. So if you're not using the desktop application, which makes it even easier, it's a fast way to navigate between all of your blocks, and I really, really like that. Now, a couple of cons, I've just added a new one because I just took one away. There's no on-off switch. Why did they do that? I have to pull out the plug or plug this into my power strip or something like that. Please give us a power button. It's quite convenient to have one. And I did have to throw something on the cons list. The other thing, and this is really actually nitpicky, this pewter color is kind of nice, but they've got this yellow writing on here. And when I'm in my studio, which is generally dimly lit, or if you're on a stage, you cannot see the labeling on here. Number one, it's very small, and this yellow on the pewter is almost impossible to read. I just can't see it at all. I would much prefer seeing some bold lettering. I guess if you're using this a lot, you'll get familiar where everything is. I mean, it's a stylistic thing, but I can't read it. So that's a nitpicky thing, but something that I do mention. If you're a little bit sight challenged, you're not gonna be able to read the labeling. And all of you companies who put your labeling on the back for all the ports, I wish you just put it along the top, because I typically look at my device like this. I like to be able to see where my connections are if I'm reaching from the front. Of course, everything is on the back. That's just how they do it. But anyways, overall, I'm really impressed with this device. If you're in the market for a budget amp modeler, I think you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck with this device. I will always encourage you to try anything before you buy it, if possible, or at least listen to as many reviews as possible to make sure that this is the device for you. But for the price, I honestly think you can't go wrong with this. So I will put information in the description if you want more information about the Sonicake Matribox II. Anyways, if you have any questions at all, any thoughts, have you purchased this device? Would love to hear from you. Let me know in the comment section. And if you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. And remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll. And I look forward to seeing you again in another video. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, I've got another one waiting for you right here. If you really want to help the channel, check the description. I've got all sorts of affiliate links. I'm on Patreon if you want to do a deeper dive with me, and I've got Lonely Rocker merch. It's all in the description, and it all helps. And I look forward to seeing you again in another video.